Hello. Okay, hang on. Hang on. Okay, there you go. Okay. All right. Um. All right. Hello. Sorry, I don't have music just yet. Give me a second. All right. So, hello, you beautiful people. It's me, Atropa. Hope you're doing well. So today is Educational Wednesday, and we'll be learning about composition art. So just give me a little second. I'll just be putting a timer for myself, so you know I can take regular breaks and stuff. So yeah, I hope you're doing well. There you go. Yeah, the stream cord is really not working. It's kind of annoying. Okay. Okay, alright. Put the timer. And voila, okay. So, hello people. Hope you're doing well. So today we're going to be working on composition. Yeah. So I hope you're doing alright. Sorry for the feedback. So, okay. Just setting up. There you go. Alright. Today we're learning about composition. Hope you're ready. Alright. Alright, there you go. That's some good chow. Okay. So hello, my beautiful people. I hope you're doing alright. Okay, so today we'll be working on composition and art. So you know, we are continuing on from like last week where we were talking about color theory. I'll probably go back to color theory in the future. Because we can definitely go more in depth into it. Like example, character design, landscape, you know, that kind of fun stuff. So, like being able to set the mood in a scene, for example, which is important, especially in my case, since what I really want to do is making comics. So, and it's a good thing to learn how to set the mood in a panel, you know. So, well, it's like the same thing in writing as well. Or like photography or movie making, like cinematography, like that kind of fun stuff. I mean, it's same thing like with composition, super important for a lot of stuff, whether it be graphic design, photography, comics, animation, video games, movies, TV shows, you know, you name it. It's pretty useful for a lot of stuff. So, without further ado, let's get started. So, alright. I'm just gonna be reading off of like, okay. So, what I'll be doing, I'll be starting to read out from this. And I'll be sending the links from I'll be sending the links to like the materials I use in the chat in just a bit. So alright, we'll be starting with theory, and then we'll be moving on to to we'll be moving on to okay, so after that we'll be moving on to like practical stuff. I'm like due to both stuff. So alright. So first article blog that we'll be reading is from thevirtualinstructor.com. So link is right. Well, I can't really see the link, but I'll be sharing it with you in a bit. And okay, here's the link for one more word for the current article. So okay, here's an article on composition and art by the virtual instructor. So we can. I'll pause the mute. I have no idea if the sound's gonna go through, so I'm not gonna play the video for now. But you can watch it on your own time. Alright, also I'm liking the design of the website. Okay, so composition is perhaps the most overlooked aspect of art creation. It's also one of the most important aspects to get right. If your composition is weak, then your work is also weak. Even if you have a full range of value, your proportions are correct, and you've used the mediums as a master. If your composition is poorly planned and executed, then your art could be considered a failure. Thankfully, composition is one of those things that we can get right with a little planning and knowledge. It doesn't require talent, and it definitely isn't about guesswork. There are a few rules we can consider when we plan our works, so that we can be successful in every time. I'm sorry about it. Also, I have a caramel in my mouth, so if I sound weird, that's why. Okay. Okay, so what is alright. Sorry for the sudden like caramel crunching ASMR. Anyways, so what is composition in art? There's obviously more to creating a successful art of work outside of marking. Crunch, yeah. Eating Werther's Originals. Werther's Originals, please sponsor me. I want to review caramels, please. But so anyways, composition and art. I really did not want to read all of that. But the link is, it's there. I'll post it again later. But okay, so creating focal points. Focal point is the area of, or areas within a scene that command the visual attention of the viewer. In most cases, focal points include a main subject, and every work of art should have at least one focal point. Give me a second, I'm gonna open my account because I'm thirsty and I don't want to be too loud. Okay, give me a sec. Anyways, okay. So, oh, I splattered iced tea all over my screen. Good job, Atropa. Okay, so focal point should be limited. In many cases, only one focal point is required. You can have more than one focal point, but any number beyond 3 will be difficult to pull off. So you don't want your composition to be too busy, I suppose. If your work has more than one focal point, then there should be one that dominates the others. In other words, there should be one main focal point and perhaps a supporting or secondary focal point. Well, I guess the same could be said about stories, I guess. You don't want to have too many characters at a time, I guess. I don't know. Focal points can be created in a work using a variety of techniques. These techniques include contrast, isolation, placement, convergence, unilateral. Okay. Although we'll briefly cover each of these techniques here, we can cover them more in depth in these lessons. Yeah, okay. It's reading time, baby. It's reading time. Okay, now let's briefly look at each technique for creating a focal point. So, okay. Okay, I'm gonna move this out of the way. Por favor, please. Okay. Go. Okay, hang on. Oh, no, it's not working. There you go. Okay. So, first way to create a focal point is through the use of contrast. Super important, both in color theory and just everything. Contrast is super important. So, okay. So, contrast. Okay, contrast. So, So move back to what I was reading. So, contrast. So contrast deals with difference. This could be difference in value, color, texture, size, etc. When we include an area of strong contrast, it pulls the viewer's eyes to that location in the work and creates a focal point. So, for example, it could be, I don't know, well, like the example showing us just a bunch of like bright red, tomatoes. So, see them as, tomatoes, okay? So, hang on. So, tomatoes. Be a bit too bright. So, tomatoes, okay? So, you have a bunch of like bright red, bright tomatoes, right? But it's kind of boring if it's just the tomatoes. Well, I mean, like, there's a bit of contrast here and there, you know, with the green on the red. But, just put one unripened tomato right here as the focal point. Your eye immediately just goes there. See? Focal point is right there. So that's an example of contrast. See? So I'm gonna type that. Contrast. It's way too big. Okay. So here's contrast. See? So focal point is going to be there, because if you just have the tomato, like a red, like the ripened tomatoes, like the green's gonna give a bit of contrast, but it's kind, you know, it's kind of boring. Your eye doesn't know where to look, and then you have like the bright green tomato, and then your eye cannot help but look at the tomato. So, now, another contrast, okay? So another example of contrast could be isolation. So, yeah. No, I know what you're talking about. So, like, there's going to be one thing that's colored in. Yeah, no, that's actually a really good way of having contrast, because your eye is like drawn in to the thing. So, for example, now the next one is isolation. So, isolation, you could have, you know, group of people. Talking with one another. And then you have someone all the way in the back, like that. So, an example of isolation. Oops, wrong thing. So about isolation. Okay. That would be an example of isolation. So, let's put 10. Okay. There you go. So here, you have an example of isolation. That's contrast. So isolation. If you ever got in trouble as a kid and the teacher put you in the corner, then you know what isolation is all about. When you're sent to the corner, every other kid in the classroom stares at you. What a terrible punishment. When we isolate a subject or an element in a drawing or painting, then this element naturally commands attention and becomes a focal point. So, for example, you have that one person there in the background that, like, yeah, it could be, like, your attention could be drawn there, but it's like, your attention's, like, more probably drawn there, because, you know, that's the matter themselves. Okay, placement. Placement, we are usually pulled to the center of shapes. If we think of the picture plane of a work as a shape such as rectangle, then we can expect our viewer to be pulled to the center. If we place the subject close to or exactly in the center of our picture plane, then the subject becomes a focal point. Although this technique works to create a strong focal point, it's usually not the best technique to create a visually stimulating composition. When we place subjects in the center of the work, the result is typically static and boring. It's better to place the subject slightly off center, or better yet, on one of the curves. More on that in a moment. Okay, so let's see if I have an example of that. Why? Okay, so I actually have two examples. First, I'm just gonna use, I'm gonna use that as an example, and then this. Okay, so here's the first example. Okay, okay. So for placement. Okay, so the main focal point right here is Lilith, an AD&D character. So she's right in the center, but you know, it's a boss. She's in the center, you know. But it could have been interesting if, you know, she'd be off center just a tiny little bit, and you know, like that. Or something like that. Yeah. So that's an example of placement. She's in the middle. Not like right in the middle because she's more towards the bottom, but she's in the middle. But that's kind of boring, you know. So, and then there's this more recent art I did for art competition on Sapphire's community Discord. So the subject is this lady there, but she's not in the center. She's actually off center. She's a bit to the side, so it's definitely a lot more interesting that way. So so that's example of placement that I don't need to draw. I'm not gonna save that. Okay. So I got this and this. Oh, that's a bit big. Anyways. Yee, thank you! I haven't posted the art yet, but online, other than on the server I originally posted it on, but
In a writer, I'm looking for somebody who brings everything to
okay.
the table.
So yeah.
You know, who brings art, who brings their vision, and particularly who bring their brain to the table, so that they're aware of what they're doing and they're making conscious choices.
Okay, so placement. There you go. Some example of placement right there. Okay. So right now we have contrast, isolation, and placement. Alright, so convergence. Ooh, this one's gonna be good. Alright. So convergence refers to the act of guiding a viewer's eye within a work using visual cues. This may be lines, shapes, contrasting colors, etc. Each element that we include may guide a viewer's gaze to the focal point. Sometimes we are drawn to an area within a work simply because the artist has manipulated elements to force our attention to a specific area. We can do this too. Okay. So basically convergence would be okay, I'm not vibing with the music. Okay, hang on. Let's put some jazz. There you go.
Gives them a satisfaction they couldn't get any other way.
Oh, there you go. Much better. Elevator music. Okay. I need something relaxing. Okay? So, elevator music is perfect for that. So for, what was it? Convergence. Yeah, convergence. Also, we'll be taking a short break in about 16 minutes. So you can use that time to get some snacks, get something to drink, go to the washroom, stretch up a little bit, you know. So convergence. So you could have a road. Because I'm tired of using a bit. I'm using the picture in the article as reference, but basically you could have like a road. Yes. And then a horse. A very badly drawn horse because I'm not taking the time to draw it up properly. I'm just making an example. And then a person, you know, sitting in the saddle. like some guy in, like a cowboy in a desert, you know, walking around. I guess that would be a good example of convergence. So, little horse walking around, you know. You get some plants and stuff. So, I'll have to, like, find, like, better music. Hey, Benjamin, welcome back! We're working on composition today. How are you doing? Okay, so that would be oh, that's good. You have a good day? Go. That would be convergence. Okay. Oh, that's good, that's good. Alright. So, the usual. Anything out of the ordinary commands our attention. Okay. Oh, thanks for the alert, by the way. Anything out of the ordinary commands our attention in the same way. Anything that we include in our work that is unexpected or is drastically different from the other elements within the scene will become a focal point. Okay, so the unusual. Okay, so some of those terms I didn't know about before. So that's actually, you know, you learn something new every day. So I guess you could have just, it's gonna go with gray. So basically you could have like some guy in a pigeon mask or some girl, you know, some dude, some person. Yep. And anime protect here, yeah, that's a good way to. Well, I mean, when you think about it, that's kind of what they do with anime. Like the main characters all have like wacky hairstyles, while everyone else has like normal hairstyles. Hey, come back, McCoy. How you doing? Hope you had a nice weekend. we're currently talking about composition in art. Oh, that's good to hear. I'm doing good. Thanks for asking. Yeah, I need to get better at it, but yeah, that's why I'm doing this little thing. This little stream is just so like we can all learn about composition and get better at it together. Okay, so this one is the unusual. Thanks for the lyric. Hope you'll enjoy the rest of the stream. Okay, so anyways, so right now what we have is contrast. So basically you can just have you know, a bright green unripened tomato on top of, you know, a bunch of ripped or ripe tomatoes, you know? So, you know, your eyes are directly drawn to that. Or for example, isolation, you could have a group of people just standing off to the side like that. Oops, sorry. Okay. So, isolation can be just, yeah, with a pigeon mask. Like, they're all different, but then there's just that one person, that one guy, just, you know, wearing a pigeon mask and T-posing on top of the table. Just because he can. I mean, I'm not judging him, but, you might get in trouble with the supervisors. It's cool. So, yeah, yeah, basically, that's a good example of the unusual. So, isolation. You can just have a group of people talking together, and then you have someone just standing off to the side, being isolated, just, you know, kind of. I mean, you can have different examples too, or you have placement, where it's just, you can have the subject in the middle or off to the side. If you put the subject off to the side, it's definitely going to be a lot more interesting than just character right dead center like that. Convergence, you can have, for example, like a cowboy walking in the desert, and like because of the okay, I might put a bit more contrast to that. oops, forgot to turn that off. So, for example, you could have like the rocks like that. Using that as contrast. Like, as a way to like build some kind of convergence. Like that. Yeah. Something kind of like that. So and then you have the unusual, just some random dude T-posing on the table with a pigeon mask. Okay, and then moving on to, thank you. So, moving on to the principles of design and artistic composition. The principles of design deal with the arrangement of the elements of art and work. The elements of art are the basic components or building blocks of art creation. You can learn more about both the elements of art and principles of design here. Okay. The 8 principles of design are balance, proportion, movement, rhythm, harmony, unity, emphasis, and variety. Some art specialists also include contrast as an example, as a principle, but since contrast can create emphasis, most people leave it off the list of 8. Okay, so, okay. Not all of the principles of design directly affect our compositions, but most of them do. Here's a closer look at the ones that do. Balance. In terms of art, balance refers to the overall distribution of visual weight in a composition. Each object that we include in a work carries with it a visual weight. When we add an element to one side of a composition, we'll likely need to add another several elements to balance the visual weight on the other side. Visual balance can be achieved by adding elements or by using negative space. We can convert balance to a teeter-totter or a seesaw. Imagine we have one large object or person on one side of the seesaw. The seesaw won't be balanced. So I'm just gonna create another sheet. Okay. That. So here's a seesaw, and then you got a big bright red ball right there, so for balance. But okay, so I'll be getting back to it in 15 minutes. All right, so I'm giving you 15 minutes for a break. We'll be right back. Just, trying to make sure to have proper breaks in between. So we'll be going on a break, and we'll keep talking about balance in just a bit. All right. With that, I'll just leave you to the music when I'm gone. All right. second. Boom. Just gonna change the music. Okay, there you go. Alright, I'm back. So, anyways, before I left, we were talking about balance. So, imagine you have, so for balance, imagine you have a seesaw. Right now we have your seesaw right there, and your little ball, doing its own little thing. But, if you have, like, gravity is a thing, for example, you have your seesaw. If you just have one thing there, that's just, you have just one object, or you have two objects, but one's heavier than the other, you know what's gonna happen? It's gonna tip over. So instead, what you want to do is, for example, you could put two little objects that together will about what we call the weight of the ball. And oh, whoops. There you go. Okay, sorry about that. A little mishap. But anyways, so, whoops. So, as I was saying, good catch there, Kerbal. Okay, so basically, if you just have one thing, yeah, okay, so, you have your seesaw, you have a ball. If you just have one object, or like you have more than one object, but like you have one object that's like way heavier than everything else, your seesaw's just gonna tip over like that, you know? But, well, if, example, had, at least two objects that have that equal the weight of the main subject, then your whole composition is actually going to be a lot more stable. So, see? So, like, if it's not balanced well enough, the piece is going to look way too heavy, so you could have just composition like that. And then you have one, like, subject there. But if it's just that, it's kind of boring. So, like, you could have, like, I don't know, like, something in the bottom, maybe something like that. No. So, because you want to try and make sure that it's not too heavy, that there's a balance to it. Unless it's actually what you want to do, then you do you, buddy. You do you. So, and then and then for movement, all right. So, movement can refer to the illusion of actual movement in a drawing or painting. Art can refer to the movement that a viewer's eyes takes when experiencing your art. In terms of composition, we're most concerned with the latter. When a viewer interacts with your art, their eyes move from one element to the next. Usually the most commanding element demands immediate attention. After that, the viewer may move on to other supporting elements within the scene. And as artists, we can control the eye movement based on how we plan our composition. We can guide a viewer to the most important elements, and many times, control how most people will ingest our creations. In those cases, we want the viewer's eye to flow through the work in a certain order. Which, for example, is super important in comic making, because you want people to follow the, like the movement of like the panels and stuff. You want them to read it in the right order. So, and a good example of movement is this. This is a good example of movement because the focal point is right there. Like, you see like the tomatoes, but then your eye is drawn to, the green tomato, or, so like an example of movement is you could have a scene, you have your mountains, you have trees, and there's different like yeah. It's like your eyes are gonna move, your eyes are gonna move over the stuff. But yeah, so like Kirby Smith is saying, your eyes just naturally feel an emotion conveyed in his panels that they naturally guide your eyes along the page. So like when you're like for your composition, if you want to use movement, while it's, you're being able to control the viewer's attention and like they move along the piece or the panel the way you intend them to. So rhythm, we understand rhythm through repetition. So rhythm is repetition. For example, we can hear the beat of a song and its rhythm because it repeats many times in a predictable way. Like the song that's playing in the background. Without repetition, there is no rhythm. In art, the same is true. We must have repetition in order to have rhythm. Visually, rhythm is created by repeating elements. This could be a regular or irregular pattern of repeating shapes, or it could be a repetition of a specific subject. Either way, repeating elements produce a rhythm. So here's a really good example of rhythm. Do I have it? Okay, hang on. Okay. So I made this pattern of bats. You can see here. I'm not sure where there's... Okay. There you go. So I made this pattern of bats like a few months ago in October, and see, you can see the rhythm. It's just bats over and over. So that's a good example of rhythm. So, basically like a wallpaper with like, repetition of like more or less like the same patterns. It's a good example of rhythm. You could have a close-up painting of like flowers as well. That could work, So can be an example of pattern. this. So here's an example of a rhythm. Okay. So, harmony and unity. Okay, our art composition should also be harmonious and unified. Harmony and unity are so closely related that it's easy to assume that they're the same thing. They are very similar, but each should be considered separately in our compositions. Unity deals with a feeling of oneness. This is usually accomplished in a work of art by using a medium in a consistent manner and to a level of completion. You can also think of unity in terms of artistic style. If the style and use of media are consistently used in a work, and the work feels complete and finished, we usually can say that the work is unified. Unity can also be created in the work through simplification. This can be achieved by simplifying shapes, subjects, or color schemes. The work below is unified and harmonious for a number of reasons. The most obvious way it's unified is through its use of color. So here's whoops. No, that's not what I want. Copy image. Okay. So here's a painting by Robert Harris, a North African interior, made in 1877. So you can see there's a unified color schemes. The main color scheme is like, main color scheme is complementary color scheme. There's lots of greens and lots of reds. And the greens are actually more subdued than the reds. So Harris has simplified the color scheme and used mostly the complementary colors of red and green. The green is very curvy. As you can see, it's more like neutral, kind of, It's like, it kind of leans towards more towards being neutral and stuff. So the reds take center stage, but it's still there. Like, you can see green here and there. It's still noticeable, and it's just it's kind of harmonious. It feels nice to look at. Like, even if lady's wearing like a very bright red pants and shoes, because the more like earthy greens help harmonize and unite the piece together. It's a lot nicer to look at. So harmony helps to create unity in a work. While unity deals with the work of art as a whole, harmony deals more so with the individual parts of the work. If the individual parts of the piece all work together, then the art could be considered harmonious. And another way to think of this is to consider a family. A family is made up of different members. Let's look at a family in a transitional sense for this analogy. A family may have a father, a mother, a son, and a daughter. Or could have two fathers, two mothers, just like one parent. Each family member is different and is their own unique person, but a family is still a unit. Some families get along well with one another, while others don't. We can create harmony and unity in our compositions by using a medium in a consistent manner throughout the work, simplifying shapes, objects, or color schemes, using a consistent style throughout the work, making sure the work appears finished, and ensuring that each individual part of the piece works and makes sense with the other parts. So, alright, emphasis. Emphasis. We often use emphasis to define a focal point or points within a composition. We've already discussed several ways an artist can create a focal point within a work. Each one of these methods relies on emphasis for its success. Emphasis is usually created in a work through some form of contrast. Take a look at the work below. What do you think is emphasized? So, oops. Okay. No, okay. There you go. Okay. Alright. Here's the piece that they're showing in the in the examples, and it's actually by Edgar Degas. Oh, cool. So Edgar Degas, the Epson Franker, 1876. All right. So let's look at the painting. So let's see what seems to be the emphasis. So you have you have yeah, like the first thing I saw was like the lady there. See? And with her little glass of absinthe, little bottle of absinthe, and like table, the man, the other table, the booth. They're all like they all seem to be like, you know, framing her in a way. So, and like she's right there in the middle, and here's a line like going there like that. She's there in the middle. There's her bottle. There's a glass of absinthe. It's also another glass, but I guess it's for the gentleman there sitting next to her. And then she's not exactly looking towards the camera, but sort of. While the guy is like looking off to the side, so I guess he'd be like part of the focal point, but I feel like this woman is like part of the focal point. Now let's see if I'm right. So most of the rest are drawn in to the woman it's seen, more specifically to her face. Ahaha! Yeah, that's like the very big focal point right there is her face. It's like, that's the most noticeable thing because she's actually sort of looking towards the camera, not quite, like towards us. So, Degas has pulled our attention to her using several methods. For starters, she's centrally located within the picture plane. Like, see? She's in the middle. There's also strong value contrast around her. Like, there's contrast there, contrast there. It's like contrast like there. Notice how the man next to her is dressed in black while she wears white. Like, Booth is like a very dark brown. The guy's dressed in black. She's wearing like a brown, reddish skirt. Like her hair is like darker, so that does give a bit of contrast. There's also the gentleman's shadow right there as well. Oh yeah, like the block said, there's even a dark shadow on the wall right next to her, to like the face of her light face. Like, see? Hey, thanks for the lurk. Hope you enjoy me as your background noise. But anyways, then there's the lines of convergence created by the tables and the edge of the bench. Yeah, see, like, you got the bench, you know. So basically a lurk is when you want to watch the stream, but you don't necessarily want to interact, which I mean is totally fine. Like maybe you just want to listen to the stream as background noise, or you're doing something else, or you have to leave for a moment, or maybe I don't know, you're just too shy to actually interact, or you don't want to like disturb like the person streaming or something. So yeah, basically you're just in the background listening to the stream in the background, you know. So that's basically what a lurk is. But yeah. So yeah, line of convergence. You have tables going like that. You know, you have the angles. And then, bam, have her. You have the lady's face. You also notice that the face of the woman has more details compared to the other elements within the scene. This also helps to build the viewer's eye. Oh yeah, you're right. Like, that guy's face has details, but like maybe not as much, I guess. Hers like very detailed. It's like, you know, if it was an actual person, like the face is like super detailed, and then the rest of her body is like kind of more like like the rest of the body is less detailed. It's more like, you know, it's then a lot less detailed. So yeah, you had the line of convergence like that, you know, kind of centering your eyes there. You have the contrast with the like the booth, the guy wearing like a mostly black outfit, the dark cast shadow right there, just kind of framing her face like that, you know. And then her face is like super detailed, so yeah. Alright, so variety. Like in physics, variety also deals with difference. Our drawings and paintings should include some variety. Variety? Variety. Yeah, variety. Okay. Did I forget to put my timer on? Ah, jeez. Just gonna be generous. I'm just gonna put 40 minutes. Okay. So consider your favorite food for a moment. Now consider what life would be like if you had to eat your favorite food for every meal for the rest of your life. For breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Oh jeez. You have your favorite food and nothing else. It may be great the first day, but after that you grow very tired of your favorite food. We can think of our artworks in the same way. We don't want to bore our viewers with the same visual information. Instead, we should include some variety to keep them... Yeah, and potatoes too, but I mean, if it's just like the same meal... So... Potatoes are versatile. No, your argument isn't valid. I mean, yeah, you're right, but I mean, if it was just like same food, but like, I guess it's prepared the exact same way every day. So, you have your favorite food and nothing else. It may be great the first day, but after that, you grow very tired of your favorite food. We can think of our artworks in the same way. We don't want to bore our viewers with the same visual information. Instead, we should include some variety to keep them engaged and make our artworks more interesting. The trick here is balancing both harmony and variety. If we take variety too far, the work will likely not be harmonious. If we take harmony too far, the work may be lacking variety. Take a look at the image below. Notice how much variety is present. Okay. Copy this. Okay. So this painting is by the Vasily Kandinsky, Composition 4, and was painted in 1911. Alright, so you got blues, oranges, you have greens and reds, you know. It's basically like all the colors of the rainbow, so they all go together. And so they match together, but you have a bit of variety, because you have splotches of like paints here and there, grabbing your attention. Like you have a rainbow there. You have, I guess, mountains too. I guess this is a building. You have these two lines. It's like, this is probably like the sky too, like a sun. So, yeah, it definitely has variety. I mean, it's not a pain to look at, because the colors are harmonious. So, but yeah, it's like Kandinsky has created variety by using a broad range of color, but kept the painting unified through simplification. So like, you have a bunch of colors, but hey, welcome back, Phantom. So, ooh, I should make an emote of like a tropa where she has like a Dorito. She's eating Dorito chips. That'd be cool. But yeah, so basically, so for variety and harmony, like being together, well, you have, it's fairly simple enough. Like, you know, just landscape. You just have like rainbows, like different, like, you have a wide variety of colors, but, you know, it's still simple. So, you know. Actually, let me open Affinity Designer. Okay. We'll close that really quickly. Open. Okay, hang on. Ah, there you go. Okay. So I don't forget. There you go. And I have a trouble eating Dorito chips. Going to save this. And voila. Alright, so now for positive and negative space. Space is one of the 7 elements of art. When we think of space, we often consider it... Yeah, Dorito. When we think of space, we often consider it in terms of depth or the illusion of depth. In drawing or painting. However, when it comes to composition, we can think of space in terms of the actual pictorial space on the drawing or painting surface. The space that is taken up by important subjects or design elements is considered positive space. The areas that surround these locations are considered negative space. Often it is the negative space that provides an area of rest for the viewer. Take a look at the image below. We see the original image on the left. In the middle image, the negative space is highlighted with red. And the third, we see the positive space highlighted with red. Okay. So basically, this. See? Okay, so you have this orchid right here. So you have your orchid right here. Alright? And the subject is the orchid, and the background is white. See? So that's the negative space. In this image, the negative space is in red, and then that's the positive. And then the positive space, which is the orchid, is highlighted in red right here. Yeah, no, it actually does feel nice. You're right. I mean, you could just have that, like, just painting or something. Just, like, the space of, like, an orchid without the orchid actually being there. Yeah. Yeah, it does look nice to look at. Positive and negative space work together to create a composition. A composition can be made up of mostly positive space, an even balance of the two, or mostly negative space. Now... There you go. Oh, yeah, you're right. Okay, so the following image illustrates a composition made of mostly positive space. So you see, most of the space is occupied by the flowers. There's a bit of negative space, but not a whole lot. And it's still the same orchids. And then you have a balance of the negative and positive space. They take about more or less the same space. So you have the orchid right here. And it's kind of taking more or less, the same space. And then last image, which is, which is basically, like the image from the beginning is mostly negative space. So you do have like the positive space, but negative space is what's like taking most of the space, but in a way it kind of highlights the orchid, so your eye's still like going towards the orchid. Each one of these compositions is derived from the same subject, and each could be considered successful. Successful use of positive and negative space within a composition is dependent on balance. How this balance is achieved will depend on the subject, the use of the medium, the level of detail included, contrast, and other visual factors. The best way to craft a balance in a work and ensure that the positive and negative space works for the good of the composition is through careful planning. So, very important to plan your composition. Okay, so I'm gonna take a quick little drink. Alright. Planning your composition. Planning is perhaps the most important aspect of finding success with your compositions. Unfortunately, it's the step that most people skip completely. I felt called out. I'm in this picture, I don't like it. Let's say you decide to go on a road trip to a place you've never been before. It wouldn't make sense to just pack your bags, hop in the car, and leave without knowing how to get to your destination. True, good point. You'll likely take a look at a map or enter your destination into your navigation system. You'll never arrive at your destination without some form of preparation and guidance. In the same way, we should plan our compositions before we attempt to execute them. We need to know where we're going with our artworks. We should plan the final result before we set out to create it. We can change our ideas as we work if we wish, but we should have a general idea of what we want the finished work to look like before we dive in. Like how I do have an outline of my comic. I know where I'm going. It's not too detailed because I know I'll be changing it along the way. But at least I know where I'm going, so by planning, we can work out all of the compositional puzzles that go into making a strong piece of art. When we do this, we can focus on the actual process of drawing and painting, since most of our decisions regarding composition have already been made. In most cases, planning a composition involves creating small drawings that lack details. These small drawings are often called thumbnails or preliminary sketches. Thumbnails should be created quickly and should be approached with an attitude of experimentation. The more thumbnails that you create before starting on the final surface, the better your chances are at creating a successful composition. So, okay. So, here's an example of, planning. So you have this little thumbnail of a baby right here, you know. It's kind of like the general composition, like the general background and stuff. And then the finished piece. It's like the background, like the baby's a lot more detailed and stuff, you know. As you create your thumbnails, be open to trying different things. Experiment with the positioning of subjects and with the balance of positive and negative space. Consider how a viewer's eye may move through the work. Try vertical-based compositions and compare them with horizontal ones. Experiment with different colors. Keep your mind open. Many times we have a vision in our minds of what we want to create and naturally assume that it is this vision that is the most successful. However, in most cases, our initial vision is just the tip of the iceberg. With a little more digging, original vision is just if our original vision evolves into something much more successful. This only happens when we are open to experimentation and we take the time to plan. Alright, and now for the rule of thirds. Alright, the rule of thirds is a composite. Okay, I need to give my throat a break for like a minute or two. Just gonna take a quick little drink. Oh man. Hi, thanks for the work. Okay. So the rule of thirds. The rule of thirds is a compositional theory that is based on the placement of subjects within a composition. It is based on the golden mean, which is a mathematical formula that deals with proportional relationships. Since the golden mean is quite complex, most artists and photographers rely on the rule of thirds to create a similar effect. Here's how it works. Let's take a composition and divide it by thirds. So they're using this. Okay. So that's painting by Armand Guillaume. Hollow in the Snow, and it was painted in 1869. Nice. But anyways, you can imagine the lines that run along each of the thirds. These lines intersect in 4 locations within the picture plane. By placing important subjects or focal points on or near these locations of intersection, we create a more aesthetically successful composition. So, see? So, here's the actual painting. Right there. You see the lady there? Okay. So, you have your lines going that way, and then the lady's just smack dab in one of the... Oh! Welcome to the server. So make sure you read the rules. And, yeah, make sure you read the rules. And then you can click on the check mark, and then you can introduce yourself in the introduction section if you would like. And now what you can do is what you can do afterwards, if you can choose your role, like if you want your name to be a certain color, pronounce it like an obbies. I'll be adding more in the future though. But yeah, so. So yeah, you got a bunch of stuff you can pick and choose for the little section. So. Alright. So notice how Gamma is positioned the figure almost directly on one of these points. See? Look at these right there. You can also create more dynamic and interesting composition by placing subjects directly on these lines. Just like the tree's kind of there. But like the main point, like the main focal point is right there with the lady. She's just in the corner there. Okay. Creating diagonals. Compositions can be dynamic or static. Static compositions are fairly straightforward and direct. A static composition makes sense for an informational image, like a scientific illustration. In contrast, a dynamic composition creates a greater sense of story and engages a viewer. In most cases, we want our compositions to be dynamic. It's just something I need to learn how to do. Again, composition can be dynamic or static. Okay. I already read that. The dynamic compositions can be created by incorporating diagonals into the work. So, like this. These diagonals may be created with actual lines and shapes or implied lines. They can also be used to help guide viewers' eyes through the work, as we discussed before. So this painting is by Frederick Remington, the Cowboy, 1902. So, you see, like, lines, like, you have the line from the mountain and the cliff going diagonally. The horse is falling diagonally. Probably, yeah. I'm sure the horse and the cowboy are both gonna be all right. I hope. But yeah, they're falling diagonally. The rocks are aligned diagonally. The horse is going diagonally. The guy is kind of going diagonally as well. So, look for interesting ways to include diagonals in your work. This may mean that you change the angle of the vantage point of the viewer. Instead of drawing or painting the subjects from a standard point of view, consider the view from above or below, or even from a tilted angle. Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay. Head numbers are better. When we compose our artworks, we should also consider the number of subjects or elements that we include. The human mind finds balance in the numbers. Not numbers. I totally missed the dot. Okay. The most optimal number to use is 3. This means that if you are composing a still life, it's best to use 3 objects. This doesn't mean that we are limited to 3 objects. We can, of course, include more if we wish, but if we do include more, a number is best. Let's consider an image with 2 objects, so like this one. With 2 objects, there seems to be a sort of visual competition between the two. It's difficult to decide which subject is the focal point. So, however, when we include a third, like this, the other 2 subjects act to frame the third, resulting in a more balanced composition. See, like this one, there's just this ball there. So you have that ball, it's supposed to be a focal point, but you have the other ball behind it, so it's kind of hard to see which one's the focal point. And then if you have a third one, then the focal point just immediately becomes this ball right here. Conclusion: composition is not guesswork. A great composition is not the result of luck, and it's certainly not about talent. It's about understanding how a viewer will visually interact with what we create and careful planning. We've covered quite a bit here. It's a lot of information to soak in, but by practicing these concepts and incorporating them into your artworks, they will gradually become intuitive and your compositions will improve. So once again, I will post the link of the blog I was just reading. Here you go. I'll be posting it in the resources section of the coming to the Discord server. Boom. And then yeah, because we now have it coming to the Discord server, which I will be linking right here. And boom. Gonna link. Alright. Okay, so I might read one more thing. I might read two more things for tonight, and then I think I'll be ending the stream because my throat's starting to hurt. But yeah, so next thing is 5 ways to create a focal point in artworks. So what are focal points? Knowing how to create strong focal points in art is a skill every artist should understand and be able to execute. Focal points refer to the areas of the artwork that demand the viewer's attention. Intelligent placement of focal points can positively affect the overall composition of the artwork. Creating good artistic composition takes knowledge of how your artwork will be viewed. Understanding how your audience will view your artwork will help you to communicate more effectively through your artwork. So I'm actually going to move this right here. Okay. There you go. Alright. So. Alright. So. Knowing how to create strong focal points in art is a skill every artist should understand and be able to execute. Focal points refer to the areas of the artwork that demands the viewer's attention. Intelligent placement of focal points can positively affect the overall composition of the artwork. Creating good artistic composition takes knowledge of how your artwork will be viewed. Understanding how your audience will view your artwork will help you to communicate more effectively through your artwork. Creating focal points in your artwork is one way to be in control of how your artwork is viewed. There are several devices that artists can use to ensure that subjects are seen in an artwork. These subjects become the focal points in the imagery. Contrast. One way to create a focal point in art is through the use of contrast. Contrast refers to the difference, which we talked about earlier. It's like with the tomato, like the bright green tomato over the background of like a bunch of bright red tomatoes. Contrast because green is complementary color to red. Any type of difference in imagery will result in that element becoming a focal point. Difference or contrast can come in many different forms. Color, value, texture, shape, and form can all create contrast. By combining elements, you can increase the contrast that is created, thus strengthening the focal point. Isolation, another one we talked about earlier. Another way to create a focal point in artwork is through isolation. Whenever one object or element is separated from a group, it becomes isolated and in turn becomes a focal point. Placement. Objects that are placed in the center of the picture plane or near center will naturally become a focal point. Most of the time, a focal point that is not exactly center is preferred. By placing an object or element just off center, you can create a focal point through placement without affecting the aesthetics of the work. So like earlier, I was talking about how my bust of my D&D player character, Lilith, she's in the middle. So she has a focal point. There's negative space too. But it's kind of boring, and then I have that drawing I made for the art comp for April on Sapphire's server, where I have a lady with like cherry blossom blooming in the background, and the lady is just standing off to the side. She's the focal point. She's not in the center. She's more towards more kind of the left, you know? So it does make it a bit more interesting. Convergence. So like the absinthe drinker from earlier, like the lady where like she's the main focal point, but like her face is like super detailed. And like you have the booth, you have the tables, like all making converging lines towards her. So like she's the main focus of the painting. And yeah. So Convergent Support way to create a focal point in artwork is to use implied lanes to direct a viewer's eyes to an object or element. This technique is known as convergence. The unusual. The drawing I did with all the kids in the cafeteria just chatting, you know, amongst themselves, you know. And then there's just some random guy standing on the table, T-posing, asserting his dominance, while he wears a pigeon mask. So another way to create a focal point in artwork is to introduce an object or element that is unusual to the scene. This object will stand out and demand attention, thus create a focal point. Yeah. And then maybe we'll do at least one more. Might be able to do just a bit more, and then after that, I think I'll be taking a break, giving a break for my throat for tonight. So depends on how long this is. All right, great, powerful artistic compositions. 21 pro tips by Dan DeSantos, Steve Ellis from Imagine FX. So it's from Creative Block. It's a pretty good resource if you want to learn how to do stuff in general. So yeah, that's more towards like illustration, that kind of stuff, comics. So strong artistic compositions are vital to the success of a piece of art. The composition of a piece is what captures a viewer's eye and holds their attention once they take a closer look. Artistic composition can totally change the mood of a piece of art. And Friday will definitely be a lot more riveting than today. I'm mostly just doing theory because I'm trying to learn more. So, changing it from vibrant energy to solemn contemplation. But how does this happen? Why do some seemingly beautiful rendered pictures fail to hold up, whereas others captivate viewers? Many rules dictate what makes a good composition. For example, the golden ratio, the golden spiral, and the rule of thirds. However, it is crucial we don't approach these theories as unbreakable rules, but see them as suggestions or optional templates. So, it's like rules of, the elements and principles of art, like they're rules, but like not rules in the sense you absolutely have to follow them, but rules in the sense of like, it's guidelines to help you, but you don't have to follow all of them. We'll discuss some of these techniques throughout this article. Explain why they are successful and how you can use that knowledge to make a better image. To begin, all you really need to know is this: a good composition is nothing more than a pleasing arrangement of shapes, colors, and tones. That's simple enough, really. Chances are most of you can make a good composition with your eyes closed. So tell the story. Whether it's a professional brief or notes for a personal piece, the first step is to think about the story. Which elements are crucial to telling the story? Which are secondary? And which have tertiary support? This is how you figure out how the hierarchy of elements in your piece. This is how you figure out the hierarchy of elements in your piece. I have some trouble English, but it's okay. Here, the confrontation between the warrior and the dragon should be paramount, but the secondary elements, such as the wrecked wooden platform you can see there, need to support the central narrative of the piece. So you got the warrior fighting against the dragon. And either an enemy or companion is dead right there. You have a bunch of demons and monsters about to attack the person. Person is just standing there on the platform, So main subject is there, and then you have the dragon and stuff. It's pretty cool. Creative relationships. Creating a relationship makes the viewer compare the two shapes, thus creating movement. As simple as this image is, it already has a sense of motion and depth. How? I don't even need to read, but I can see how. Like, you have the black square that's like all clear, that's all, it doesn't really have details, it's just a square. But like, it's not blurry, it's like, it's clean, it's sharp. And then you have the gray square, it's further behind. It's blurry, and it's, smaller too. And I'm gonna say it's probably behind and further behind because, you look at mountains far off into the distance, further like they are in the distance, the more like they blur in with like the rest of like the sky. So like a mountain that's closer towards you is gonna be darker, and then mountains that are farther down in the distance are kind of like, they're kind of, I wouldn't say lighter in color, but they kind of blend in a bit more with the sky because they're further. So it's like kind of the atmosphere, So as simple as this image is, it already has a sense of motion and depth. How? Through relationships, causing a disparity between the shapes is given the viewer a mean by which they can compare the shapes. This one is bigger, that one is lighter. The gray square appears to be moving and receding only when compared to the black square. See? The process of comparing these shapes requires that the viewer moves their eyes repeatedly around the canvas, and therein lies the true goal of a great composition, controlling that eye movement. Manipulation, baby. Manipulation. Thinking thumbnails. Start with thumbnails that are the same size ratio and orientation as your final image. If the thumbnails are at the wrong dimensions, you'll end up with all your balances off kilter and have to rework your design. During this early stage, it's important to solve many of the design problems before even thinking about the final image. The delicate balancing of elements can lead to a strong image, while a slight misplacement can change or alter the impact of the image you're creating. See, like, you have like really like different thumbnails. That one's more simpler. It's kind of closer to what the final image is, but it's not the same armor. It's more of a rock. And then you have the person facing forward. Kind of three-quarter, but like kind of forward. In the middle image. And then the third image is like more towards what the final image is, closer to that. Sorry. Okay, so no shape matters. Plan for the outside shape of the image. This is a personal piece, therefore the size was able to be set. Commission pieces don't allow for this luxury, and the artist has to react to dimensions provided. Everything in your image needs to relate to the portrait dimensions. That's why the canvas size is crucial. It creates the framing device for the image. The shape that the viewer will be looking through. Once the other dimensions are established, the design can be approached from different directions. See, these all different. Develop dynamic symmetry. Great compositions use geometry. Here's an example of how dynamic symmetry helps to take this piece to a deeper composition level. Line art. Draw the lines to find the primary point of interest. Using the initial sketch, draw a line from the top right corner to the lower left. Oops, sorry. So I'm going to finish reading that, and then I'm going to be taking a break for 15 minutes. Using the initial sketch, draw a line from the top right corner to the lower left corner, then from the top left corner, draw a line at right angles to the first line. This is the primary point of interest, and where you'll paint the dragon's eye. Identify edges. Draw a line straight across at the primary point to establish the dragon's eye line, then place a line from the bottom right corner at a right angle to the horizontal line. These help to establish important elements like the edge of the platform, the orc side, and the dragon's wing. Oh, that's cool. Check placement of elements. Next, repeat these steps starting at the top left corner. Using these guides, locate the edge of the platform, the left wing, and the warrior's hands. This enables you to see that the warrior is right in the middle of the diamond shape. The dragon's head, shifted right, is now in the upper diamond. Oh, that's cool. Alright. So, I'll be taking a break for 15 minutes. Give a short break from my throat. I'm going to be at least finishing to read the page from Creative Block I started reading. And yeah, so be giving a short break from my throat. If you want, you can join my community Discord server. Fully can be a good place for all of us to get to know each other better, and we can share our artworks, that kind of stuff. Can share pet pictures, So, sorry. I'll be back in about 15 minutes. Take the time to drink water, eat some snacks, go to the washroom, do some stretches, do some stuff, So, I'll see you in 15 minutes. Global. Oh yeah, but by the way, Rebel, if you want to be green, you can be green. Alright. So I'm back. Oops. So I'm going to do a session of 30 minutes this time. Or at least it's either going to be 30 minutes left for the stream or just until I'm done reading this blog. So, yeah. Alright. Okay, so now we're at the golden ratio part. Alright, So, the golden ratio expresses itself as a spiral. Sometimes dynamic symmetry doesn't feel right for a piece, and this is where the golden ratio is most useful. This Greek mathematical equation expresses itself as a spiral. Many of the most famous pieces of art use this ratio to decide on the placement of elements, and as a natural way to lead the eye across an image. It's so embedded in our natural world and our humanity that we often use a ratio without realizing it. Like, you can literally see it in food. Like, broccoli, especially some types of broccoli, and sunflowers as well. The belief that all things, both tangible and intangible, have a perfect state of being that defines them. They also felt that one should always strive toward achieving the ideal state, be it in mathematics, one's physique, politics, or aesthetics. The spiral has created harmony between elements. See? This spiral there, spiral. I think the spiral starts there, frames the lady, like the warrior lady, and then the spiral just kind of frames the eyes of the wolf. Mathematicians, after repeatedly seeing similar proportions in nature and geometry, developed a mathematical formula for what they consider an ideal rectangle. A rectangle with sides are at 1 to 162 ratio. They felt that all objects whose proportions exhibited this were more pleasing, whether a building, a face, or a work of art. To this day, books and even credit cards still conform to this ideal. I see, it's kind of the shape of a credit card when you think about it. In the case of the image above, the spiral has been used to create an harmony for the elements of interest, such as the wolf's eyes, Morrigan, the tree, and the ravens. Channel the rule of thirds. See, rule of thirds. Dulac abided by the rule of thirds. Dulac. That looks so pretty, dude. Okay. So, this states that if you divide any composition into thirds, vertically and horizontally, then place the key elements of your image either along these lines or at the junctions of them, you'll achieve a more pleasing arrangement. But does it work? Let's look at Edmond Delac's painting, The Little Mermaid. The prince asked who she was above. So that's the prince. Delac was great at using empty space to his advantage, partly because he tended to abide by the rule of thirds. Look, see, there's empty space. I mean, there's a scenery, but it's kind of like subdued, kind of compared to like the little platform there with the mermaid and the prince. So, and there's a pillar there. So kind of does make a rule of thirds. Here, Dulac has placed the column in the horizon line perfectly. See? All on a line of thirds, but what if it didn't? The result is less successful with the column and horizon in the center position. See? It's kind of boring like that. You know, like that. It's more interesting that way than that way. With the column and horizon line in the center of the image, the result is less successful. The column dominates the image, stealing focus away from the figures. Meanwhile, if the column is right there, like, you know, in the corner, the focus is more towards the mermaid and the prince. The column dominates the image, stealing. Okay, the viewer's eyes now glued to this strong shape that bisects the canvas, instead of wandering around the image like it originally did. Learn how the rules work. The rule of thirds works because it demands that the artist makes one element more dominant than another. As dominant Dominance creates an imbalance, and an imbalance of any sort will always attract the viewer's eye. Bisecting an image perfectly in half creates the least amount of interest. The least amount of interest, because everything is equally balanced. Making one area of your composition more dominant creates tension, and therefore adds interest. It also makes your eyes move around the canvas more to compare all of these relationships. The fact that the composition is divided into precise parts is really of minimal significance. You could divide a composition in fourths, fifths, or even tenths. So as long as there's some sort of imbalance, the composition will exhibit tension. As you'll soon see, this concept of imbalance applies to many aspects of composition, including value and color. So now use applied lines. See, there's applied lines, like there's a line there, lines on the tentacles, lines there, the monster, lines there with the shape of the boat, and the waves. Okay. Okay, these are probably the most important aspect of a composition because you notice them first. When painting realistically, there is no actual line around a subject. The illusion of a contour is a result of different values and colors contrasting. But even the impression of a line is strong, and our eyes will go to it and follow its line until it ends. Or until it meets another line, which will follow again. A great composition makes strong use of this natural attraction to lines. Sweeping action and movements across a piece will draw the eye from one side of a composition to the other. Using strong direct action lines built into elements of the picture can move the eye to the point you want. In non-action pieces or in the common areas of action scenes, use elements such as flowing cloth, curling smoke, or even directional brush strokes in the sky. All subtle trails that the eye can follow to the image focal point. Here, the waves, the tentacles, and the shape of the cell direct the eyes. See? Reinforce those focal points. There you go. Okay. As well as using applied lines to draw the eye all around a composition, you can use the same method to make someone look immediately at your chosen focal point. In fact, you can do it repeatedly from multiple directions. This is particularly useful when your image is a portrait or a pinup. Oh, I should draw pinups on my characters, including a tropa, of course. Of course, I'm gonna shrimp for my own characters. In fact, you can do it repeatedly from multiple directions. This is practically useful. Okay, I just read that. Okay, see? Focal point. There's lines of action there. And collapse. Sword and the arm. Leg. The wheel. Just see? Surrounding objects should point to your character to draw the eye in. To bring more attention to a particular character, try to make surrounding objects such as arms, swords, and buildings point to your subject. You can also use implied lines to frame the subject's face, locking the viewer's eyes in place. Create drama via a point of view. See? Point of view. Main character's there. Forefront. There's like a bit of diagonal lines. And then you have the bad guy just in the back. Stuff. For an emotionally effective piece such as this, the viewer should place themselves in the head of the warrior, or a hero, and thus the viewers should feel overwhelmed and outmatched. So he's kind of lower down, I guess, but still willing to fight to achieve, like, he's lower down and crouched, but he still wants to fight, you know. To achieve this, the villain has been placed above the midpoint of the picture. The angle has been canted a bit to throw the viewer off kilter as well. Ooh, I should do that for my comic. Ooh. That way the villain is literally looming over us as well as the boy. Oh, I should do that for the comic of my for the cover of my comic. Oh. See trees everywhere. Ah, yes, Roll of Birds. Again. Roll of Birds seems to work its way onto most aspects of picture making, and value is no exception. When constructing composition, think in general arrangements of foreground, middle ground, and background. To heighten the relationship between these three depths, try to restrict each to a range of value favoring black, white, or gray. For instance, you can let the background predominantly be white tones. See? The middle ground predominantly grays, and the foreground predominantly black tones. Like I said earlier, the further away something is to you, the lighter they are, the closest they are, like the darker they seem. Of course, any arrangement of these three values will work, but restricting your values in these areas, you reinforce your image's sense of depth and make the silhouettes very easy to read. And that legibility is important. See? It's like the background and foreground are like darker, while like the middle ground, which is kind of the focus, is like lighter grays and white. So your eye is naturally drawn there. Mighty values hurt the viewer's ability to dissect shapes. Also, that's why, like, especially if you're painting, I think that's why I suggest you start by playing around with, like, the values, like blacks, grays, whites. So after that, it's easier to, like, make sure it's contrasts well. Like, you have the right values. Especially on a small scale. That's why you'll see this technique used so often in trading card art, where your image is just a few inches tall. High contrast composition, work, especially well. Cryptic value schemes like this are readily apparent in the works of the old masters, particularly in the engravings of Gustave Doré. Okay. His paintings all show different arrangements of black, white, and gray to emphasize the difference between foreground, middle ground, and background. Harness the power of triangles. Triangles! Oh! See, triangle. Foreground, background. Our compositions are often based around strong, simple shapes. Here, the areas in this piece need to have an individual moment to themselves, but also to fit together as a team. Because the triangle is a strong shape, the team has been composed so that its various elements help the eye to the arc paladin's head. Ah, yeah. The green triangle, and because the background is also orange as a downward pointing triangle. Oh, yeah. The blue triangle creates a diamond shape where the heads of the main figures are approximately placed. All of this is meant to pull the reader towards the expressions of the character's face. Be clever with color. Oh, see complementary colors. Greens and reds. Cyclone. Oh, cool. Color is an amazing tool for composition. In a piece where I want something to hit hard, I use a lot of contrasting values of color as well as complementary color. A bright warm color in the middle of a field of cool can really pop out of a scene and draw the viewer's eye. Here the word cyclone does a dark red so that contrasts against the blue of the water, while the eyes of the serpent are bright yellow against the dark turquoise of the sky. The boy is being highlighted with yellow and a lighter skin tone to bring him forward against the sun and the water. Ooh, this is pretty. Black and white are inherently powerful tones. If you use them sparingly and right next to each other, you can draw the viewer's attention to a particular spot with ease. When painting, try reserving the purest whites and blacks for your focal point. For instance, if your main character is very pale skin, try placing something extremely dark on them. Contrast! Such as black hair or black clothes. This is one of the easiest and most successful ways of making your subject pop. And the above painting, Blood Divided, this has the effect of sitting the area apart from the background, see? Like the values of her skin's like a lot lighter. I'm not sure about the perspective of the lady, but still looks pretty cool. Consider your angle. Ooh, that's a nice angle. But that one's a lot better. And balance can create a more exciting flow to your composition, but it can also add drama. Ooh, drama! The next time your painting is exciting enough, try tipping the camera angle. Even the slightest tip to the horizontal line can turn a mundane scene into a cool action shot. Experiment with the psychological impressions that different camera angles create. Strike this painting lacks real excitement. The bricks, rain, and air all create simple vertical lines, and don't do much to enhance the drama of the piece. Tipping the image gives it a whole new feel. So remember how earlier we were talking about diagonal lines? Okay, it's giving diagonal lines. Sorry. Suddenly it appears like the woman is being thrust against the wall. There's also more of a sense of weight to their poses. So, nice titties. Yeah. Okay. Assess the silhouette. Ooh, negative versus positive space. Ooh. When planning a painting, think about how the image will look as a silhouette. Compositionally, the silhouette is the outer edge of the main forms of the foreground objects or figures. If it works in black or white as a composition, then there's a good chance that the composition should work fine in color. If you don't mess around with the color values too much, Also make sure that the silhouette is interesting and background elements don't compete with it. There is symmetry or asymmetry. Symmetry is great at telegraphing order and calm, but it can be pretty unexciting. Sometimes, as with this portrait, think about bilateral symmetry, but vary the elements a bit to keep the piece feeling active. The expression in the eyes and the positioning, shape, and size of the different tentacles, for example. Also balance the background elements without repeating them so that they retain a sense of energy. See? It's like the main focus is centered, but like his hat, like, it's not exactly symmetrical because there's that little decoration on the hat on the right side of the hat, and then one of his eyes fully open, like one of them is like half closed. Tentacles are kind of all over the place, as metals are there, so there's also like some weight, like there's some balance. So like if it was just that and there was nothing there, it'd kind of be unbalanced, but there's something there, and then there's something there on each corner, then you have that there, there's like the background's a bit different. See? Also balance the background elements without repeating them, so they retain a sense of, okay, read that. Play it big and bold. Sometimes it pays to be blatant with your design elements. Just look at any Norman Rockwell Saturday evening post cover. I'll often use a giant circle on one of my points of interest in a piece. See? Creating a halo around the main character or action. This draws the viewer's attention to anything that breaks out of that circle. Taking this approach also works with other simple shapes, such as a diamond or a triangle. Oh, I guess you can see that with Muka's art. See, kind of like her face kind of highlighted by like the circle, you know? There, like there's a bit of a frame there. But that's also a really good example, you know? Think ahead to the final product. It's important to think about the final home of the art. Is it a game card or a book cover? Or will it hang on a wall? Gallery art is different compositional needs than a card image or a 6 by 9 inch comic book cover. While a strong composition will work on many levels, the intensity of detail needed for a larger reproduction may not be necessary for a tiny card. Simple shape compositions can be strongest for small pieces, but might seem too simple when on large. Stay loose. While such advice can help to create strong images, if they ever become restrictive, throw out the rules and do some unstructured sketching. Use bigger, looser, bolder strokes and shapes, and then go back to these tips. In the end, you never want to lose the spontaneity in the image. Otherwise, it loses its fun. If making the art isn't fun for the artist, it won't be fun for the viewer. Put it all together. A good composition is one where the artist controls the movement of the viewer's eye to a beneficial result. We can do this by a number of means, such as reinforcing the focal point with the roll of words, applied lines, compressive value, and selective color saturation. See? Putting all of these tools into action in a single piece. Jean-Léon Gérôme's Duel After Masquerade Wall is the perfect example of using all compositional devices to your advantage. Oh, okay, that's actually really cool. Did I share that in the resources? Yeah, I did. Okay. So I did. Alright. So if you ever go to my Discord server, I'll actually post the link in the pod as well for on YouTube. I'll have the references I used for today posted in the art resources channel. So then you'll be able to take a look at more references and stuff. So yeah. There's also different elements of art. It's the same thing. Composition is the term used to describe the arrangement of the visual element in a painting or other artwork. It's how the elements of art and design, line, shape, color, value, texture, form, and space are organized or composed according to the principles of art and design. Balance, contrast, emphasis, movement, pattern, rhythm, unity, variety, and other elements of composition to give the painting structure and convey the intent of the artist. Composition is different from the subject matter of a painting. Every painting, whether abstract or representational, regardless of subject matter, as a composition. Good composition is essential to the success of a painting. Done successfully, good composition draws the viewer in and then moves the viewer's eye across the whole painting so that everything is taken in, finally settling on the main subject of the painting. yeah, okay. The elements of composition. The elements of composition in art are used to arrange or organize the visual components in a way that is pleasing to the artist and, one hopes, the viewer. They help give structure to the layout of the painting and the way the subject is presented. They can also encourage or lead the viewer's eye to wander around the whole painting, taking in everything and ultimately coming back to rest on the focal point. In Western art, the elements of composition are generally considered to be unity. To all the parts of the composition feel as they belong together, or does something feel stuck on, awkwardly, out of place. Balance is the sense that the painting feels right and not heavier on one side. Having a symmetrical arrangement adds a sense of calm, whereas an asymmetrical arrangement creates a more dynamic feeling. A painting that is not balanced creates a sense of unease. Movement. There are many ways to give a sense of movement in a painting, such as the arrangement of objects, the position of figures, the flow of a river. You can use leading lines, a photography term applicable to painting, to direct the viewer's eye into and around the painting. Leading lines can be actual lines, such as the lines of a fence or railroad, or they can be implied lines, such as a row of trees or curves of stones and circles. Rhythm, the same thing. You have repetition and stuff, focus or emphasis. You try to draw the viewer's eyes to the most focal point, like to the most important thing or focal point in the painting. So, it's not, the eye is not wandering. Contrast. Paintings with high contrast, strong differences between light and dark, for example, have a different feel than paintings with minimal contrast in light and dark, such as in the Whistler Nocturne series. In addition to light and dark contrast, can be differences in shape, color, size, texture, cycling, etc. Pattern, a regular repetition of lines, shapes, colors, or values in a composition. Proportion, how things fit together and relate to each other in terms of size and scale, whether big or small and their values distinct. That is also posted in the resources section, on the art resources, to be more precise. I'll actually be posting the links. Yeah, that's also the same thing as well. You have rule of odds, hot numbers, simplification, trying to keep it simple, geometry and symmetry. But yeah, if you have anyone telling you, oh no, you have to follow the rules and you have to learn them, well, you don't have to follow them per se. Like, they're more like guidelines. You don't have to follow them to the letter. You can break them. Besides, the point of art is just to express yourself. So it's like, they're guidelines to help you make something interesting, but you can still make something interesting while, necessarily following them and just, breaking the rules. So, you're not gonna go to art prison if you don't follow them. But, yeah, so, anyways, that'll be it for today. My throat is really needing a break now. But I hope you enjoyed yourselves. See you on Friday. I'll be working on a short comic again. And I'll be posting the VOD for this stream. Right after the stream, I'll be putting down the references as well. All the resources I use. I didn't read all of them, but at least they'll be there. And, yeah. The link to my YouTube channel is going to be in the panel section. And there's a playlist with my VODs in there. And, yeah, you're also more than welcome to join my Discord server. I'll be posting the link as well. It's right there on screen, but I'll be posting it on, in the description as well. And, yeah, thanks for coming, guys. I hope you enjoyed yourselves. and I'll see you again on Friday. Take care. Love you all. Bye.